So the Shastra says, Kaivalya Narakayate. For a devotee, impersonalism is worse than hell. So now we'll probably shed some light on this particular topic. So for a devotee, why is impersonalism worse than hell? The first thing is that for a devotee, the most important thing is service to Krishna. He wants to serve Krishna with all his heart, with all his mind, with all his soul. But the point is that if you become a demon or if you go to hell, say, imagine, okay, then also there is a time limit, you will probably go to hell for some time and then you will suffer the consequences, and then you will be released from hell, and then there will be a chance for you to continue your devotional service or, to come back to devotional service. Of course, a devotee can never go to hell, but just theoretically, on a theoretical basis, hypothetical situation, if there is a hypothetical situation, then like this, then a devotee would opt to go to hell. Why? Because he knows that the moment I finish my scheduled punishment, I will be released and then I will continue my devotional service. And it might not be that long. But if I become an impersonalist, if I get Kaivalya Mukti, and once I go to Brahma Jyoti for millions and trillions of days of Brahma, I might be stuck in there. So I won't be able to see my Lord for that much time, So it's all about time. So when Hiranyakashipu was asked whether you would like to go down there for 7 lifetimes or 3 lifetimes, Prabhupada actually quotes this 7 lifetime thing, one of his conversations. So it's not like completely speculative or something. It's actually quoted by Prabhupada. So Hiranyakashipu, actually these Jai Vijay say we don't mind becoming a demon than to become a devotee and stay in the material world for longer period of time. Devotee nahi, like basically a non-devotee, but not a demon. Kind of an impersonalist. So basically the implication there was that the option that was given to them was that either you go down to the material world, obviously you won't be devotees, but you will be kind of neutral guys, neither devotees nor demons probably. And the other option is, and you stay there for 7 lifetimes, living a pious life, but definitely not a devotee life, because they would have definitely opted for that if it was a devotee life. Even Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, if I become a devotee, then I don't mind becoming a Kita Janam, but I don't want the position of Brahma if I'm a non-devotee, Bahirmukha. So they definitely would not have rejected the life of 7 lives of a devotee. So it was the option that was given to them was definitely not that of a devotee. So it must be an impersonalist. If you're a devotee, if you're not a demon, not an atheist, then what are you? An impersonalist. So basically they rejected the impersonal life, 7 lifetimes of impersonalism, and they opted for 3 lifetimes of demoniac existence. So why would they do that? Now why would a devotee agree to be a demon but not an impersonalist? What is so bad in that? So from the perspective of the material world, an impersonalist is also considered a transcendentalist, a so-called transcendentalist. So he's also a transcendentalist, because ultimately when you become when you get impersonal revelation, you get Brahma Jyoti, and then there is no pain in that, the suffering and the pain is not there. So in that sense, if escaping from pain is the primary goal of your life, because the material world is a place of suffering, so then the impersonalism is sort of like holds a high pedestal in this kind of scenario. But for a devotee, it's completely different. Now, what's the basic definition of bhakti? The basic definition of bhakti is Anyabhilashita shunya jnana karma anavrita anukulena krishna anushilanam bhaktir uttama. So, if you see the basic bare minimum requirement for bhakti, that is anushilanam. You should do some service for Krishna. Now in the material world, whether you are a devotee or whether you are a non-devotee, you are all serving Krishna. Like even demons are serving Krishna. Like Hiranyakashipu is serving Krishna by becoming an enemy. Ravan is serving Krishna by becoming an enemy. What's happening is that Krishna fights with them and he defeats them, and Krishna enjoys defeating them finally. So he has come to take them back to Godhead. Basically, he has come to take Jai Vijay back to Godhead. but Jay Vijay are like kind of averse to him. They're not devotees. So there is a fight, and then he enjoys the fight. Basically, Krishna enjoys the fight. So the fight continues for 3 lifetimes, and then they go back to the spiritual. And a similar kind of a situation has happened with the Jivatma also. Somehow we have chosen not to serve Krishna in the spiritual world, and Krishna has come to take us back to the spiritual world. Just like Narasimha Dev has come, Lord Ram has come, and Krishna has come. So in the same way, Lord Krishna is Paramatma, and then later on as a Ishtadevta in our heart, has come to take us back home, back to spiritual world, and we are resisting that, and then there is a fight between us and Krishna, like Kolavecha Sridhar and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and this fight will go on forever if we don't make the right choices, like, because Krishna is going to enjoy the fight. So as long as Krishna enjoys something, that thing can go on for eternity. That's the reason why we know as Nitya Baddhas. So when we fight with Krishna in the material world by becoming a non-devotee, by becoming an atheist, that also gives pleasure to Krishna, because Krishna enjoys everything. He enjoys fighting in Kurukshetra, he enjoys dancing with the gopis, he enjoys dancing with Kaliya also. So he enjoys Jai Vijay's service in spiritual world, he enjoys Jai Vijay's service in the material world also, as Hiranyakashipu. So that is giving enjoyment. So that becomes Anushilanam. So even becoming a non-devotee in the material realm is also Anushilanam. That's also service. But the only people who don't do any Anushilanam is those people who have been liberated in Brahman. They are completely, absolutely neutral in their outlook towards Krishna. They have no sense of love, nothing. Everything is gone up. It's as if they are frozen in time. So these guys are the only guys. Even demons are doing Anushilanam. Although Pratikula Anushilanam, they're not doing Anukula Anushilanam, but they're doing Anushilanam. But the impersonalists or the Mayavadis and all those people who have been liberated in Brahma Jyoti, they are the only ones who are not doing Anushilanam. So their state may be better than a demon who is suffering all the horrible Narakayate, like, Kaivalya Narakayate. So it's like a demon may be suffering, all normal even living entities in the material world may be suffering, but they are still doing some service to Krishna, and there is a hope for them to go back. But the person who has been liberated in Brahma Jyoti, he has been stuck in he might be stuck in Brahma Jyoti indefinitely. There is no reprieve for him. So the thing that we are talking about here is like so there is no Anushilanam at all in that in impersonalism. Whereas when you become a non-devotee, there is still some sort of Anushilanam, but then of course, then you should do Anukula Anushilanam, Krishna Anushilanam. Anukula Krishna Anushilanam. Anukula means favorable devotional service. So that's the goal. So and then it goes higher, like Jnana Karma Anavrit. So what is Jnana Karma Anavrit? Jnana is impersonal knowledge mixed with devotional service, or a desire for getting out, mukti. A desire, doing devotion service to get out, primarily to get out of the material world, not as a love for Krishna. The predominating force is not love for Krishna, but desire to get out of the material world and go to the spiritual world. So if that is the predominant desire, then it's like mukti is the kind of goal. So it's like Jnana Mishra Bhakti. And Karma Mishra Bhakti is like the primary goal is to enjoy in the material world, like by doing devotional service. You want to become temple president, you want to become good mridanga player, you want to impress somebody, Prabhuji, Mataji, you want to do that. And so if you do service with that intention to get some immediate pleasure or some kind of pleasure, and then that would become Karma Mishra Bhakti. So when Jnana Karma Anavrit, then you reach the stage of Asakti, where your entire thing is, no, you don't reach the stage of Asakti, you still the stage of, say, Ruchi, where taste in devotional service is the only motivating factor. Like you like Bhagavad Gita, reading Bhagavad Gita because you just like reading Bhagavad Gita. You like Kirtan because you just love Kirtan. You get spiritual pleasure, not material pleasure. Karma Mishra Bhakti is material pleasure. You are opting. So there's spiritual pleasure in Bhakti. The process of Bhakti is giving you pleasure. Serving Krishna is giving you pleasure. So it is, so that becomes Ruchi, when that becomes very predominant in your lives. Just like Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna. So all these stages are already there right from the beginner to the very advanced devotee. But one stage becomes predominant, like Sattva-guna becomes predominant, and then the person is said to be in Sattva-guna. Even the most person the ignorant person is also there in, actually, there is some amount of Sattva in that, because without Sattva there can be no mind. And without mind, one cannot exist only. So there has to be some kind of sattva even in the most ignorant person, and there has to be some kind of ignorance even in the most advanced sadhaka. Like otherwise you cannot, without ignorance is sleeping, you cannot survive without sleeping. Or ignorance basically is perceptions also, like the mode of ignorance creates perceptions like sense of touch, sense of smell. These are basic codes. So you cannot stay in the material world. The moment you are out of any one particular mode means you are more or less out of all the modes. Then you have to literally transcend all the modes, because these modes are intertwined. You cannot get out of one of them. You just have to get out of all of them. Actually, it's like a rope, a knot. So basically, when ruchi becomes predominant, then it's the taste in devotional service that is prompting your bhakti. That is giving your bhakti the push. So that's the stage of ruchi. But then a stage will come, asakti, where the entire impetus for bhakti comes from Krishna's pleasure. Like you love Krishna so much that you're ready to do anything. It's not like you're not attached to any service, nothing. It's like, you just only attached to Krishna. Whatever gives pleasure to Krishna, you're ready to do that. Whether it's cleaning the temple floor, Prabhupada says this, that means anya abhilashito. So that abhilasha, even after jnana karma anavrit, like, jnana karma anavrit pretty much covers everything in the material world. You have no desire for happiness, you have no desire to get out of pain. That's the only two things that everybody wants in the material world, to have happiness and to get out of pain. So jnana karma anavrit covers everything. So there is no material happiness, no material pain, nothing. So the entire impetus for devotional service is spiritual pleasure, that is ruchi. But when the impetus changes from the pleasure that you get from devotional service, now the impetus changes, and now it is Krishna's pleasure that gives you pleasure. Then that stage is asakti. It's like your hand has been attached back to the body. So now when the stomach is happy, you're happy. So it is Krishna's pleasure that gives you happiness. So that is the stage of when you become a paramahamsa or a asakti, and then bhav and then prem comes. So the point here is again that the different stages, the very basic level of understanding is that Anushilanam should be there. So in Mayavad, there is no Anushilanam. So that's why it's even worse than demoniac existence. That's one of the things. Second thing I was thinking about in the spiritual world, let's see where does this, because everything is a reflection of the spiritual world, where does this impersonalism, demoniac, and then devotional service come from? Like, when Radharani is extremely angry with Krishna, the first thing that she does is she goes to Man Mandir, and there she is like completely, she's like, she's in a frozen state. She's like, I don't know who is Krishna. So, I don't care about it. I just don't want to think about him. It's all over with me. It's finished. She has gone with Chandravali. I'm not going to even talk to him, nothing. There's no anger, nothing. I'm totally impersonal with him. So this impersonal existence is the highest expression of anger in the spiritual realm. Then Krishna comes to Radharani, he begs her forgiveness, and then, he tries to appease her, and there are so many things, pastimes, and then she bursts. The anger within her, which was pent up, which was literally, transformed into an impersonal existence, suddenly pents up, and she's literally chastises Krishna left, side, and center. So the perverted reflection of this would be demoniac existence in the material world. Like when as Jivatma, when is tremendously angry with Krishna, he is in the impersonal state actually. So he doesn't talk, he has no hate, nothing. He's completely impersonal to that person, And then when finally when a few drops of bhakti sprout on that impersonalism, then anger comes out. They say that anger is the next stage, and that stage he becomes a very pratikula bhakti kind of a person. He becomes very anti-Krishna and stuff like that at that stage. So the highest form of anger is impersonalism. So, and then Radharani, then finally Krishna appeases her, and massages her feet, and then she becomes appeased with Krishna, and then she starts reciprocating with Krishna. So that stage of a Jivatma, these are all like transcendental Mahabhav stages in the spiritual world. The reflection of these stages create the three material worlds actually. So in the material world, the concept of impersonalism comes from the perverted, just like sex life is a perverted reflection of Adi Rasa. Similarly, impersonalism is a perverted reflection of the highest form of anger that can be manifested in the spiritual world. That is impersonalism. And then the next stage is anger. So just like, imagine you got a sister and you're very angry with your sister, like somehow there is a huge problem. So you just stop talking to her, like, you break off the ties with the family, you just like stop talking. There is no anger, nothing, everything is finished. That is the impersonal state of existence. And then the sister comes and then she begs you, please forgive me, everything. And then if you really forgive her, and then you start getting angry, why did you leave me, why did you do this, how did it happen, why. So, and then finally there's a lot of fight and a lot of this thing, and then it cools down, and then you become devotee, you love your sister back again. So Krishna is also going to these stages, like, if you see, the first stage is when the Jivatma is completely aloof from Krishna. Krishna is so angry with the Jivatma, he's like, as a Paramatma, he's so neutral, kind of. He's not actually neutral, he's never neutral, doing a lot of pastimes, but relatively neutral in the sense. He is kind of, there is not much of a relationship that Krishna has. And then as a devotee becomes sadhaka and everything, then Krishna starts manifesting his anger, in one sense, like, in sadhaka's life also so many problems, so many things. Krishna starts personally interacting with him. And the first wave that a sadhaka feels is devastations, problems, so many things. So it keeps on happening. So that is the stage where Krishna is cooling off. And then comes the stage of, like, when Krishna accepts us, and then we go to the spiritual world. Of course, Krishna never actually becomes impersonal in one sense, because even as Paramatma, although relatively he is impersonal, because Paramatma is relatively having an impersonal relationship with all the living entities, he is not having a very personal relationship. But still, Krishna always has that, this mood of, trying to take the living entity back to the spiritual world. So, but yes, he is kind of sort of like, impersonal in the beginning. That's why with the Jnanis, with the Mayavadis and all, he comes in the form of Brahman actually to them. So Brahman is the most impersonal form of Krishna. It's like, Krishna himself is in that state with the living entity. I don't want to talk to you. So that is Brahman. When Krishna comes to anybody as Brahman, then he is in the most angry mood. He's in the mood where he doesn't want to talk to the living entity, he doesn't want anything. Then he comes as Paramatma, then he starts fighting with the living entities. And when he starts fighting with the living entities, the anger, suffering and everything. And then he comes as Krishna in the heart of a devotee. Prayer, Santa Sadaiva Hrideshu Vilokayanti Yam Sham Sundar. Sham Sundar replaces Paramatma in the heart of a devotee. And then he starts accepting the devotee, sadhaka, everything. So the first manifestation of Krishna is Brahman, where he is completely impersonal. Just like Radharani is most angry with Krishna, she completely shuts her off, shuts herself out of the world. Nothing, she wants to talk, nothing. She just shut off. Completely stoic, in a stoic mood. So in the same way, Krishna is in the form of Brahman with the living entities, completely shut off with the living entities. And then slowly he comes as Paramatma and then vents out his anger by creating Dukkhalayam Ashashvatam. And then he comes out as, as Krishna. So this was the 2 cents on